So now that December is upon us, I think we can start having the conversation as to which players are making the case for early MVP considerations, who is carving out their space. This could change, of course, as the season goes on. We are still in December, but as of right now, it's Jayson Tatum Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I'm going to tell you who I have number one. I want to first get into the criteria of how I'm judging the MVP race, and I'm also going to mention other names as well that will be in that conversation, I believe, too. As you see on the screen, this is how I will be evaluating things in this discussion. I'm going off of individual/statistical performance, team success, and team talent. I want to focus on the first one more because I'm still taking into consideration also past MVPs and what usually happens. And so I feel like I've almost in some way been forced to put more focus on that in order to be accurate with the eventual outcome. But at the same time, I don't want to just go along with what I'm seeing if there's some flaws in it from my perspective. For example, the Cleveland Cavaliers are 17-3 right now as I record this video. Best record in the NBA. Yeah, they lost a couple of games. They're still doing good. However, usually with a team like that, even given the team success, they still don't usually have an MVP at the top of the conversation unless he's putting up crazy numbers. Let's look at the past MVP winners of the previous 16 years in the NBA. Immediately, what stands out to me is the fact that most of these guys are within the ballpark of a triple-double outside of the 2014-15 season when Steph Curry won and maybe Derrick Rose's MVP in 2010-11. You know, the rebounds for both of them, Steph Curry and Rose, are just about 4. But outside of that, everyone else is near a triple-double.
We look at Luka as a triple-double threat with Jokic, two-way player in Antetokounmpo, and then Joel Embiid, we know about his dominance. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a traditional guard. He's going to give you 30 points, maybe 2 steals, 4 assists, and 5 rebounds. Those are amazing numbers, but the evolution of the bigs, it means that you're going to get 30 points, 15 rebounds, and 8 or 9 assists. Yeah. That's hard when you start looking at just statistics.
Great point by RJ. This was a video from this past summer leading up to the start of this NBA season. He's absolutely right. A player like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a traditional guard, is going to get overlooked even if he has the same amount of talent as somebody else. Getting a few more rebounds, a few more assists, which could be the difference between you winning a game, playoff seed in a series. I don't want to just downplay it, but we also got to look at how much you're actually impacting in a positive way as well, which leads me back to my Cleveland Cavaliers point. As you see on the screen, these are their statistics that they are averaging so far. It's not going to jump out in comparison to the MVP numbers that you just saw. And if I'm putting numbers aside just based off of what I see when I watch the Cavaliers, Evan Mobley looks like their best player to me. Somebody who plays defense, versatile, can handle the ball a lot more now. He's very efficient, shooting nearly 56% from the field. He's their best player all around. When I watch, he's like a Swiss Army knife. But the Cavaliers are such a balanced team that nobody stands out enough to really put them in that MVP conversation I keep bringing up. Side note, usually when you have a very balanced team like this, in my opinion, it doesn't actually lead to a championship. It will lead to great regular seasons, and last time I checked, the MVP award is a regular season one. But this is another reason why somebody may look at the squad and say, yeah, they're doing great. Where is the clear-cut superstar, though, who is deserving of an MVP award because he's so valuable to his team that without him, they will just completely sink. My final point before I get into right now who I think is in the MVP race and who I have between Jayson Tatum and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. If you look at the 2021-22 season, Nikola Jokic averaging 27 points, almost 14 rebounds, almost 8 assists. He wins MVP, and the Denver Nuggets were in the 6th spot for the Western Conference. Similarly, when Russell Westbrook won in 2016-17 season, he averaged a triple-double, which hadn't been done in years. The OKC Thunder were in the 6th spot as well, and he got MVP too. Now, let's stick with the 2021-22 season. I don't want to go too far back. In that year, the Phoenix Suns won 64 games. They were number 1 in the West. This is Devin Booker playing not with Kevin Durant or Bradley Beal, those kind of scoring punches. He had an older Chris Paul who was still amazing with playmaking, still not the guy who's going to get you 20-plus points. Same thing with DeAndre Ayton, who was another key piece on that squad. Good rebounder, 10-plus rebounds, ballpark, 15, 18 points with efficient shooting, but the output is not going to be much more than that. In other words, I'm putting a focus on team talent with this specific point, and if I put the focus even more closer on scoring, that was Devin Booker. He was the one carrying the team. That year, he averaged about 26 points per game, 27 if you're rounding up, about 5 rebounds and 5 assists, I would have gave him the MVP award that season. Because of the team success, what he was doing with the talent, and his numbers, I think it was an overall perfect combination, a perfect trio. Now that you've heard a clear example of how I'm using my criteria to apply who's on my MVP list, I'm going to speed things up to the start of this season. And let's go with the Orlando Magic. Paolo Banchero, their best player, has been out. He's only played 5 games. That would fall under team talent, one of the points on my criteria list. In the context of the example I just gave with Devin Booker, I'm looking at this team like, wait a minute, how are you third in the East right now with your superstar player missing? So team success, another check mark for me, and you're still doing this great? Well, look at Franz Wagner, who's averaging almost 24 points, about 5 rebounds, 6 assists. He's in my MVP consideration as of right now. It's early, but if I'm being fair and objective, I would have him there. Not as number 1 or even 2, 3, but he would be in that discussion, okay? Let me be clear, because I don't want everyone to freak out and think, yo, what's this guy talking about? And I'm very aware once Paolo comes back, those numbers for Franz Wagner most likely will drop. To the person who's wondering, well, why don't you just pick somebody from the Cavaliers instead? They have the much better record. Well, it's 2 things. Number 1, Franz Wagner's numbers are a bit better than the Cavaliers players. And number 2, I don't think the Magic, roster-wise, if I'm just looking at it on paper, have a good team in comparison to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think they're overachieving, in my opinion. And I said this before the playoffs last year. I had Cleveland Cavaliers winning just because I felt like their team was much better. Moving along to a player who I have above Wagner is Anthony Davis of the Los Angeles Lakers. Lakers are in 6th in the West. The thing about that conference is so competitive. Everybody 1 through 8, and I said this before, they are above the 500 mark. If you're the Los Angeles Lakers and your team is still in that playoff hunt with Anthony Davis averaging 28 points, almost 12 rebounds, 2 blocks a game, a steal, shooting over 55% from the field, he has to be in the MVP race right now, hands down, especially since his teammate LeBron James is averaging really almost a career low of 22 points per game. The last time he averaged something this low was his rookie season at 20. That says a lot about how great LeBron James is. Obviously, it's not easy to average 20 points a game in the NBA. I'm just pointing out the fact that Anthony Davis has been asked to do more, and he's still keeping the Los Angeles Lakers afloat. Which gets into another big man in the West who is playing out of his mind still, Nikola Jokic, averaging almost a 30-point triple-double with 14 rebounds, 10 assists approximately, shooting over 50% from the field and the three-point line. This is insane. Of course, he's in the MVP consideration. I haven't forgot about him, all right? Also, let me say, too, if Nikola Jokic keeps up this 30-point triple-double as the season goes on and the Nuggets move up a little bit higher in the standings, they don't even need to with the numbers he has right now. Let's say that happens, though. It's almost guaranteed he'll get another MVP. Insert Jayson Tatum and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. These are the clear-cut MVP leaders in my opinion so far. They are both tremendous scorers. One relies more on the three-point shooting. Jayson Tatum, of course. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is more of a mid-range guy. Both of them are defenders as well. Could play make. Even looking at the numbers as you see on the screen, it's eerily similar. The only category where you see a distinctive separation is the rebounding. Tatum does that better. Outside of that, both teams are at the top of their conference. OKC's number 1. Boston Celtics are like a half a game or really the same record as the Cavaliers. It's not off by much at all. Ultimately, this is going to boil down to preference, what you like more. When I examine the Boston Celtics team, they look a bit better than OKC on paper. For example, Jaylen Brown, if you put him on OKC, he would be the second best player. We're talking about someone who just came off a finals MVP. Jalen Williams is good. Chet Holmgren. But Jaylen Brown right now at this moment, he would be better than both of those guys. And even overall, a Drew Holiday, a Derek White, Pritchard off the bench, they just have a little bit more to me than OKC. And what I'm saying is Shai Gilgeous is doing a bit more with less. Chet Holmgren has been injured as well, right? He's only played about 10 games. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. I would put Shai Gilgeous number 1 for my pick to win MVP at this current moment. I got to keep saying it. It's early. Things could change. I could have a completely different looking list in the near future when I eventually do a follow-up video as to who is now leading the MVP race. Let me know in the comment section what you think. Do you agree with the guys that I mentioned? Do you have other players that you want to hear or you think that I'm not mentioning? Let me know in the comments. As always, salute for listening. Peace.